we had a fishbowl drawing at the door, but apparently I didn't make the sign big enough. We have an autographed poster by the cast and crew that we're going to give away to one person in the audience tonight. Are we good, Michael? Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you everyone who came to see One Dead Dog. I'm Kurt Liedtke. I'm the executive director of Klamath Film. And we have with us Rollyn Stafford, the director, cinematographer Devin Greenman, and Daniel Timothy Treacy, and Brian Sutherland, who played Noah, will be out here momentarily as well. First of all, what a fun film. This looked like, and the filmmaking can be fun and it can also be a real grind. And then you get to play with blood and guts. And that kind of adds a whole new level to it. Just from the filmmaking perspective and pre-production and all that, was this the first time that you'd done any sort of horror type thing or any sort of blood and guts in filming? And what did that bring to the whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. I had worked with the makeup artist as an actor previously on a couple films as an actor. I knew him from LA, and a year later we said we should make a movie together. And he's like, yeah. And so I flew him up from LA, and I knew what he could do, so I put certain gags in the movie that I knew he could do, like the knife in the head or the arm, and he had so much fun with all that stuff. So yeah, it was my first time dabbling in that sort of gore horror genre.
How about from the filming perspective? And again, we have microphones in the audience. If anyone wants to ask a question, there's mics there and there. Just walk up to them. Having blood and guts, is there added prep as far as like making sure that like nothing fake gets on the lenses or anything like that?
I mean, there's a little bit, but like I think Ken with the FX makeup did most of that for me. Honestly, he did such a good job at it that it's just a matter of course, on a low budget, we have to watch out for the lenses and stuff.
Well, I mean, you do have some blood spurting, so like are you prepping the lens or staying upwind or what?
I think really the only scene that got us was the shower montage.
No, scene. I have to say this. That whole image where Megan is with the golf club right near the camera. Michael was so protective of the camera, putting tons of plastic all around it, making sure nothing would get on the lens. He was so nervous about that. So that was the most I've ever seen you be protective of your lens when it came to blood. Definitely.
We have a question from the audience from David over here.
It was such an unusual story. Where did you come up with the idea for it?
Well, it's mostly based on my life, besides the serial killer bit. I originally wrote the story as just two brothers finding a squatter in their cabin. The serial killer stuff was an afterthought, just came like later after I wrote the script. I thought, it'd make this a much more interesting movie. We put serial killers in it. So, yeah, but a lot of it was based around friends I've had and my brother. And that cabin you see in the movie was formerly my parents' house. And that's where we shot there until they sold it 2 months ago.
And the photos in the
story though of two brothers that were serial killers.
Vaguely, there's a lot of. You look at Oregon's history. We actually have a lot of serial killers in our state.
We're good at it.
We're really. I mean, something about our highways and being able to pick off people easily, but. But no, I did read something about two sisters actually who were nurses who were serial killers in Oregon, and that sort of caught my eye. Yeah.
We have another audience question over here from Lori.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed the film, and I really enjoyed the sort of Western themed music in it, which gave it a different atmosphere to the whole film. But yeah, I was just wondering on like while you're shooting it and stuff, were you just like dying laughing in between takes, or like how was that process like? Because it's like especially with Tracy's character, just no emotion and stuff. Like I guess how was that on set?
Can I jump in here too, because I love Tracy's performance because it's so bland and dull, and I mean that as a compliment.
I've heard this a lot.
Where the character is so straight-faced, it reminds me of the stand-up comic Stephen Wright, where like the more kind of dull and monotone Stephen Wright is, the funnier he is, and when he breaks out of that character, then you kind of lose the effect. And I love that performance of how you see there's something going on, but up front it's like yes, no, yeah. it I think that kind of makes the film in a lot of ways. Personally, that dullness is such a juxtaposition to a serial killer. But I'd love to hear your impression, your take
Try mine or Tracy.
on that. Treacy or
why don't
Rollyn?
you take the mic?
Yep.
Let me answer first.
Oh,
Though.
you go. You go.
Yes, we were dying the
Yes.
whole
We
time.
were laughing,
We were
yes.
laughing in between every take. It was very, very hard to maintain.
I was like going back and forth because I've been asked like before if I did method on this, and I've done method on other sets where I'm just like I'm that person for a day, you know, or for 4 days or whatever. And this one was like it was such a difficult character to go method in, and then go back and forth on.
Well,
you know?
prep if your method would be going out and actually killing people. So hopefully,
Right. But I'm from Oregon, but who hasn't, right? But the thing is, like, I would go back and forth in the character, but I would just like drop out. Like there was certain moments, like talking to Ted, for instance, like the way he handled his conversation with his uncle, compared to like the way he handles conversation with his brother, compared to the way he's like when he gets nostalgic and he's and blinks out, like in the room whenever he's like, I buried him back there, like that kind of thing. You know, he's out in the yard. He was so different from take to take, and it was so interesting because there was a lot. That was the thing. There was a lot going on all the time with the guy in his head, but there was nothing going on up here. And I loved that. I loved the fact that I got to play with that. But it was like usually my characters are big and blah blah blah. You know.
I've known him for years, and it was so weird to see him drop into character and be like, "Yeah, there you
And
go."
I just do that before
That's it.
that. We're
It's
like
like
we
it
get
was-
ready, and I just like take a minute to go.
Brilliant. Yeah. It's hard to do. Like
It's
that
super
dedicated.
hard to do because there's so many cues. Like normally, like if someone's talking to you or something, you just feel like you have to react.
Yeah.
And then I just like I can't react. You know, the character wouldn't react. It was super hard, but it did. It made it for my characters. I don't know if it made the film, but it definitely made it for my character. Like that kind of like nothingness.
The brother relationship too. You two had a lot of very intense close-up scenes, kind of staring at each other, and you're doing things so deadpan. Did that make it hard to stay in character and not like get all gig? Because if one person gets the giggles, everyone gets the giggles, and you're trying to be so serious, and that's what makes it funny.
Yeah, I mean, I teach comedy as a living, so it's like I'm so used to it. I'm so ready to like. All I'm trying to do is like it's like a tennis match. Like I'm trying to throw him something that he can't catch, to throw him off as much as he can, and that's what we're doing back and forth.
You're not supposed to catch the ball.
Yeah, that's how you play
That's
the
right.
game.
Oh yeah.
So it's really fun because we try to like challenge each other to throw each other off. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it was great. And like, yeah, if I was you, if I was that character, like you, I would just be like all the time just annoyed. But just look me in the eye. Let's just have a conversation with me. I can imagine having a conversation with someone like that. Like, hi, are you here? Oh, I loved it.
Now, all of you, or at least most of you, had worked together as a cast previously, right? On Road to Bob, which we showed last year. Any other projects that all of you had worked together on?
Coach Chuck.
No, I've worked with this guy for years on a lot of short films. He's pretty much in every movie I've done. You know, those were my first project. Well, I did a short with Michael actually before, and that was sort of my test run for him. Honestly, it's like can I work with him? And we made a great short film called 70, which I was very proud of, and I was like, oh, this guy's fine. He's gonna nail this movie, and of course he did. So, and Brian, of course, I had worked with on Road to Bob only for one day, but if you watch that one scene he's in, he's of course, like he always is, amazing. So I had absolutely no quarrels with casting him in that role.
We have a couple cast members, and it was a small cast who aren't here. Megan, I know, is watching right now.
Hey,
So
Megan.
hi, Megan.
We love you, Megan.
And Uncle Ted. We need to explain who the Uncle Ted character was in the film. He was in it briefly, but he's horror film royalty.
Yes, he is. That is Mark Patton, star of Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. It's a great cult classic. I highly recommend it. He is also part of one of my favorite horror LGBTQ documentaries right now called Scream Queen. My Nightmare on Elm Street. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful documentary. We knew that we wanted somebody from the horror industry to be in our film, just to give it a little depth. And we originally, that part wasn't written for a man. It was written for a mother character. And originally we were trying to get Adrienne King from Friday the 13th because she also lives in Oregon. And we thought that'd be great. But she politely backed out after a couple of negotiations. If I remember correctly, she said, "There's just nothing I can see myself doing with the part." I think that's what she said. I think that's what she said. I might be misquoted. But honestly, I thought, how about Mark Patton? And he doesn't have an agent, or he didn't have an agent back then. So I found him on Instagram, and I messaged him, and 5 minutes later, he wrote back to me. It was otherworldly, and just started negotiating from then. And he said, "Listen, you can fly me up from Mexico, where he lives off the grid in some weird town. Then I'll pretty much do your role for peanuts." And that's what he did. We had him for 2 days, and it was awe-inspiring, at least for me, to be directing this sort of cult actor and have him play this character.
Being a part of this cast and being at your family's home there, everyone was basically staying at the cabin, and so it's like a communal effort, right?
Yes, we had half of the crew stay at the cabin, and half of us stayed at an Airbnb at Blackview Ranch. And I am, of everything in this film, I'm honestly just so proud that we didn't kill each other after 14 days of living together. We were all a family afterwards, and we all had nothing but love for each other, and it was just something I wish for every film that could work like that.
Easiest, best, fast-moving, efficient set with no problem.
We finished a day early.
Yeah. We
The
finished a
whole
day
shower
early
scene
and
when
filmed
we're all
more.
like washing off our blood with an extra day that we had. We were like, let's just film it.
Yeah.
See what happens.
You never do that.
It's
Let's
one
get
of my favorite scenes.
Michael in there with his slow motion camera with more blood on him.
Like knowing what we put together like that we can have an extra day and we can just be that fast and efficient. Like taking all the positive things that we learned and like putting that towards the next film, I can only imagine. Like we killed it.
By the way, my parents hated me for a long time for that shower scene because as good as Ken is at getting blood out of places, that grout, if you're not careful, that's stuck. So I had to go in literally with a toothbrush and just hours and hours of making it. So they couldn't sell the house with bloody shower.
It's Oregon.
The film is quite an anomaly in that you filmed it on time, on budget, everyone getting along. You actually finished early, right?
Yeah, day early.
Production,
We
yes.
got the film extra scenes that we just made up on the go the next day. The shower scene was like just not even in the script at all.
So that never happens. That does not exist in filmmaking. You set a budget and then you go ask for more money, halfway through. So quite a fascinating process, but also the end product looks genuinely fun. I know that the fact that the characters are playing it straight face is what makes it funny, but it's hard not to hide how much it looks like you're genuinely having fun in the process too. Like this looks like not just being able to play with blood and guts and all that, but it looks like everyone was genuinely trying to keep a straight face while you're really just having the time of your life, right? Because this looked like such a fun project to be a part of.
It's his writing. It's like it's insane. When we read the script, I was like, I forced myself upon you to be a part of this film. I was like, I need to do this. Like every day we showed up, it was just when you have good writing, it lets you play, and then working with him.
Good directing too, like I mean the way he lets us breathe in improv, like Megan, dude. If anyone disagrees that Megan killed it, Megan killed it in that film.
Megan
and
actually,
a lot of she had so much improv and so much movement.
Yeah, I think
she was able to do it because of him.
Barely. I mean, I gave these two like occasional notes. I don't think I gave Megan any notes as a director. She was always on top of it. I was just like,
seeing the film again, and I watched it a couple times in the screening process, but Megan's performance had a lot of subtle quirkiness to it that you don't really pick up. Now that we see it on the big screen, you can pick it up a little bit better. Just little either tongue movements or just little eye twitches where it's like, okay, she's there, but there's also something off.
My favorite moment is when Treacy's trying to explain to her that he doesn't like her that, and she kind of goes like that, just slightly. And for some magical reason, at that exact moment, the sun decides to disappear behind the clouds, and it gets darker on her face. So it worked out so well.
And we went through like 90 actresses. Like we
went hard on
we
that.
all hated each other.
Yeah, we were all fighting about it. I mean, in a good way. It was like,
we could not decide on an actress. I mean, casting everyone else easy. Emily's character was so hard to find, and she was the last person we auditioned. I think. Yeah.
We have a question from the audience over here.
Hey, my name's Earl. Great job to everybody. I thought the shower scene gave a little bit of homage to Psycho. So that was cool. Just a couple questions. One is, where does the film go from here? And then also, at what point do you start thinking about maybe a sequel?
Well, when we had talked
Because
before,
you left it open.
Brian recommended One Dead Cat as a follow-up. So
he also recommended a zombie dog. The dog comes back to the film, we're looking for distribution as we speak.
we're talking with a couple people.
Yeah. And we're also, of course, submit to other film festivals. Hopefully things will pick up COVID-wise. As far as a sequel, I always thought maybe of a spin-off on one of the characters. Maybe I always wondered, what was Uncle Ted's life like before all this? Because Mark's always bugging me like, I'll come back and do more stuff for you. And I was like, well, when I can afford it, maybe we will. If people give us money, I'll fly you back, and we'll create a whole backstory for Uncle Ted. Yeah.
future projects. Is this ensemble going to be working together again anytime soon?
We hope to be.
Ideally.
Yeah. We have another script.
We did a Zoom reading for his new screenplay, and it's brilliant.
Phenomenal.
Loved it. So we're hoping to kind of jump into that.
I've written a screenplay about two half siblings and their imaginary friends who meet each other for the first time after their father's death. So that could be interesting. That could be interesting.
So good.
That doesn't do it justice. It's so hilarious.
Comedic genius.
Other than that, though, because of given all the smoke that's been happening in Portland, I foolishly shot a zombie movie in downtown Portland, a short film. We shot outside for 2 hours in hazardous smoke conditions with the bravest 6-person crew I ever did, and it looks phenomenal. So that should be coming here probably next year.
Well, you're never going to get an environment again like
Never
what we
like
had
that.
over the last 2 weeks with all the smoke. So.
Hopefully
Yeah,
not.
and one other short that this guy is also part of, and hopefully Michael is too. I'm making a short called "Why Do the Pets Always Have to Die?" And it's about a group therapy session for animals in horror movies who have survived.
Also very straight face.
Yeah.
Also, the entire thing, there isn't a joke in the entire thing. It's just completely straight. Dude, we were reading it. We were just laughing how to mute ourselves on Zoom. It was just so freaking funny.
Treacy gets to play the E-Buzz, the dog from Poltergeist, who makes it.
I do it very well.
Yeah.
I'm very hairy. So
Since this year has been such an anomaly with theaters being closed down, and we're kind of the exception to the rule as far as a film festival, who has seen One Dead Dog so far? Right? Has it shown in any other festivals?
No, we had plans to show at Cinema 21, which was in Portland, Oregon, small theater, but this is the first festival.
So this was the world premiere.
This was the world premiere.
One,
you have
one
the
Dead
honor
Dog.
of that.
in person and online.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Pretty sweet, actually.
Well, I would ask what has been the audience reaction so far, but we have only right now, I guess, is the reaction to it. Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Any final thoughts about One Dead Dog that you would like to share while we still have people online joining us?
I'm proud of it. I've done a lot of movies, and this is one that was what I always wanted to have. I always wanted to I feel like it's a movie when I'm in my old age, gotta go back and watch and really appreciate it. So, just the moments. I mean, that's all we want to do now.
No, yeah,
and everything. We just want to get the same crew, same cast, and get back together and have that bond.
That's the thing. It's no different than if you look at Adam Sandler or Quentin Tarantino.
They always work with the same actors.
And they mix it up, and of course you're going to mix it up. The thing is, if you find a good cast and crew and especially the way we did it. Like it's nuts. We did great.
Like my all-time favorite director is Jean-Pierre Junot, and it's the exact identical cast, almost. You maybe bring in one or two different people, but it's the same ensemble every single film that he does.
Well, when Michael signed on, I was like, I'm good to go.
Yeah,
Like,
he's incredible.
He's the best DB in Portland.
The movement and everything else. That one scene where I was in this is my favorite scene in the movie, is when I was in there like staring at the wall. She comes in, she's in the background and stuff, and we talk about like the guy I buried in the backyard. And I'm just like that. Just the movement, and then stop, and like the camera, like the way he tells a story through the camera alone is just like so needed in film. It just made it so much better. You know, it's incredible.
We have another question from the audience over here.
Yeah, I'm curious. So I believe Rollyn, you got killed in One Dead Dog. If I okay, and that was such just like a random killing, talking on the phone and stuff. So I guess what was the decision that you actually were the one to die, and how you chose your death, I guess, or method of death?
Interesting question. I like it. Well, I cast myself because I was cheap. I didn't want to hire anybody else. But I also am an actor, and I also love acting, and I wanted to leave my mark somewhat as an actor on this. So my death scene was what it was. We also sort of accidentally stumbled upon a theme in the film, which Brian actually pointed out to me earlier on in filming, that whenever someone dies, the color yellow, for some reason, it pops up. You see the yellow on the shovel. You see the yellow on my jacket. Gracie Lacey's wearing a yellow jacket when she dies. Montrey's wearing a yellow T-shirt. So we were trying to throw in a little symbolism, I guess, there, just for kicks. But I always liked my death scene very much because, you know, Treacy would stab me, and I would say cut, and Ken would come in and dump all the blood in my mouth, and then just like unfreeze and go and blood right out. So it was just, I think, more than anything, me having fun and being able to be part of the movie and not just the director.
There is an aspect to that, though, in the legacy of horror films, and that Hitchcock always put himself as a brief cameo in films as well. So this film, it's not as much of like a direct, obvious tribute as things like Scream is to the classic slashers, but there's definitely an homage aspect to One Dead Dog, to that whole genre of slasher films that were so prominent in the late 70s and all throughout the 80s. And you know, the king of horror films is of course Hitchcock, who everyone has emulated in his wake, and he always put himself in films in some small little capacity. So one more thing maybe with the yellow and the Hitchcock thing, I'm reading way too into it, and it just happened to be a coincidence, but
it was great. I loved it,
and I think like we talked about a lot of what we talked about before we started shooting was Hitchcock and the styles. We had a long discussion about the like not Hitchcock, but like Jaws and how that was shot, just that classic horror homage, and how they used a lot of one shots, a lot of slow takes.
That's another important thing to point out, that Michael probably cut my shot list in half, honestly. And part of it was to save time, and part of it was we just didn't need it, honestly. We had these beautiful wonders that Michael created. And like, oh, so we could go home early? It's only 3 a.m.? All right, great. Let's go get some sleep.
But yeah, a lot of that was, like you said, because we were talking about, like, you know, what does Rollyn want with it? And he really wanted to pay those tributes to those classics and show that. I think like the introduction that you had was pretty.
That's actually me in the introduction, if you didn't notice. Yeah. That's me and my brother. Those pictures.
Yeah.
And then I grow into him.
We look so alike.
I know.
Lori, did you have another question?
I mean, I could totally geek out about the film. I don't need to take all the questions.
Well, we have 6 minutes until our next screening. This is Tim, A Musical Life. Let's give away an autographed poster.
Yes. Who wants it?
Oh, actually, Phyllis over here has a question.
I wanted to know why Megan isn't here.
She couldn't make it.
Oh.
We told her.
Didn't tell us that she was pregnant the entire shoot.
Oh no!
She told us on the last day
at the wrap
and
party.
I'm like, Megan, I would not have asked you to do certain things if I knew you were pregnant.
She was 4 months pregnant the entire shoot and didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
So she has a baby now, and she's just a mom.
Yeah.
Killing it.
Good job.
Well,
Devin.
let her know that we loved her in the film. She was an awesome character.
She's incredible.
Oh, she's so good.
She was like finding her was one of the best things that happened in the film, honestly.
How about we do this as a guess? Because you guys told me before. Anyone want to leverage a guess on how much film time was spent in the hot tub to make this? And whoever gets closest gets an autograph poster. Yes. If you just want to shout out how much time you think the cast had to spend in a hot tub for those scenes in order to film it, and the person closest will give a poster to. 4
hours?
8. Hey, Eric just nailed it. You
Is
said
that it?
you said during our previous Q&A 7 hours was how long you guys spent in a hot tub to film.
I don't remember, but I'll take your word for it.
We'll take 7.
Yeah, 7.
Let's take 7.
I think it was about 6.
We were.
I think it was about 6 and a half.
Was
to
it
7.
really?
It was, yeah.
Oh, Michael knows
Absolutely.
best. Okay, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
You're
It's a hard call because there's a lot of what we do with those shots is that we'll bring the actors in on the low budgets. So you have to have the actual actors stand in for themselves, and so they'll come in and they'll sit and you're trying to not like melt their makeup off or
I was so
whatever.
sweaty in the
So,
makeup.
I was so sweaty in there.
yeah, it was probably 6
7
and a half,
hours.
7. 7's probably a really good guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, guys, thank you so much for the time. Thank you
so
for the
much for
wonderful
having us.
film, for world premiering it here in Klamath Falls for the 8th Annual Klamath Independent Film Festival. Up next, in 4 minutes, we will be showing This Is Tim, A Musical Life, which is a documentary about musician Tim Ellis. So, guys, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.